Right. Hello, everybody. Those of you who have not met me before, my name's Lance Wicks. I'm a recovering programmer. I've been a Perl 5 developer. I do a little bit of Perl 6. I run a production website that runs Perl 6, which is myjudo.net. It gets very little love. I'm from a place called Aotearoa, which is New Zealand. I do a sport called judo, which is why I talk about judo a lot. If you want the slides, that's where they'll be, and if you're really keen, you could follow along live. There's quite a bit of code which may or may not be visible, but we'll get there. And if you want to reach out to me at all, just drop me an email, and you can go from there. So this talk is going to be about Perl 6 and my writing of Perl 6 coming from a Perl 5 background. But before we do that, I'll give you some context, but before I do that, I just want to greet you all. So, tēnā koto, tēnā koto, tēnā koto katoa. That's Maori from New Zealand, and it just means greetings, greetings, greetings to you all. And the reason I say that is because Māori is a language. So is Perl 5. Perl 6 is a different language, but unlike Maori and English, I can actually speak both Perl languages. Kind of with a really heavy Perl 5 accent, though. So what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about Perl 5 and Perl 6 and my terrible, terrible accent. But before we do that, I kind of want to give some context. So forgive me as we go on a bit of a journey. So first I want to talk about Aotearoa and Rarotonga, which clearly makes sense to this talk. So Aotearoa is New Zealand, and Rarotonga is a very small country, more commonly known as the Cook Islands. And interestingly, they both have native languages called Māori. So like we have Perl, they have Māori. And to give you some context, we can play a little game. Have you all heard of the movie Moana? No? Nobody watches Disney films? Don't derail my talk. So what I want to talk about is the word Moana in New Zealand and the Cook Islands. So in New Zealand, Moana means ocean. Some of those songs make more sense to you now, don't they? And in the Cook Islands, Moana means ocean. It was pretty obvious. In Perl 5, this little bit of code, which hopefully you can read, means take the numbers 1 to 5, add them together, and print out the result. Correct? Good, no typos. In Perl 6, this says take the numbers 1 to 5, add them together, print out the result. It's the same. Yeah? All agree? However, Perl 5 is not Perl 6. Just like Maori is not Maori. Yeah? So, with one word or a little bit of code, it makes a little bit of sense. So let's have a look at something slightly bigger that you might actually understand. All humans, blah, blah, blah. If I translate that as I do with my fluent Māori, that's what it looks like in Māori. A little bit different. So what do you think it looks like in the Māori of the Cook Islands? Quite a bit different. I think I want to learn that language. It's shorter. And if we look at the two little bits of code again, the top bit is Perl 5, the bottom bit is Perl 6. They say the same thing, but they're very different. And kind of like the two versions of Maori, Perl 6 is a lot shorter, so I don't know which one I'd actually prefer to learn. Probably the bottom one. Okay. My talk is about losing your Perl 5 accent. Because Perl 6 is a beautiful, wonderful language, unfortunately, I didn't learn it as my first language. I learned Perl 5. So when I write Perl 6, and there's people in this room who know, I write it and it looks like this. So this is a little example. This is a subroutine, calculates the area of a rectangle. It's Perl 5. It does compile. It comes out with the answer 25. If I run that in Perl 6, will it work? Sadly not, because Perl 5 and Perl 6 are not the same language. So it blows up straight away. So my accent is too heavy, if you take my little analogy to its fullest extent. It's so, my Perl 6 is so bad at this point, I'm speaking too much like Perl 5, it does make sense. But I can very quickly make it run as Perl 6. It still looks like Perl 5, it sounds like Perl 5, but it's actually Perl 6. Because I've done that. So we don't change the sigils. Done that. I have to quote my the args. Oop, what? That was a little quicker than I wanted. What happened there? Sorry. Reset, start again. Say when I get to the right one. We're almost there. There. Don't hit the end button is my advice. So we get to here. Yep, seen this one? Seen this one? Makes sense? So here's a slightly more Perl 6-ish. So with a bit of practice, I lose my weird Kiwi accent, or my weird Perl 5 accent, and I can write it slightly more like Perl 6. So on this one, you can see I do this funky signature where I have height and width. Then I don't have to slurp at underscore, which I meant to write down in my notes. And then I can call it in a slightly different way with the funky colon height parenthesis 5. And this is more Perl 6-ish, right? But, you know, I want to get fluent in Perl 6, so I can go a little bit crazy. And I can go full-on Perl 6. And it fails for a very good reason. So here, in my signature, I'm adding types in now, so it's a little bit different. So I want to make sure that I'm getting 2 integers and that I return an integer. Here I call height, but I put foo. That's not an integer, and that's why it blows up in my face. So, you know, it's a thing that we don't have in Perl 5. And then I can use this thing. Yep, JJ's with me. I don't like this. But it's a very Perl 6-ish thing, so I have to accept it. That just means that width is 5. Probably a step too far for me, but you know. So that's a little example of how I can take my Perl 5 accent, or my Perl 5, speak a little bit of Perl 6 with a really strong Perl 5 accent to something that's fairly, hopefully, Perl 6-ish. Sounds like Perl 6, looks like Perl 6. But I needed more examples. So I went and stole some from Muhammad. And more specifically, I stole one from a guy called Duncan White. Are you in the room? Good, this is Duncan's solution, sorry. I stole it. This is his solution to challenge 16 if you're all playing along at home. It's a Perl 5 script that calculates who gets the biggest slice of the cake. Because I thought by now you'd all want cake. So I can try and, what I did is I took that and I turned it into Perl 6. But again, it looks pretty similar, right? So it's Perl 6 with a Perl 5 accent. This is quite nice. It's basically saying I want an argument to my script that's an integer. And if you don't give me one, I'm going to default to 100, which is the same as what's in here with that die and the n equals shift 100, that bit there. The other thing that's quite nice, this is a more Perl 6-ish loop, just for 1 to n, and pass through the I. And say, if you're doing a more recent version of Perl 5, you've already got that, but it's a very Perl 6-y thing. But you know, it's Perl still. So I stole a different solution. This is really different for me. This makes my head hurt. So here we're going to use dot chaining, I believe is the technical term. You can see that dot map, hopefully. Vaguely, the people at the back are going, no, I can't see anything. We have a state variable, again, more modern Perl, you've already got that, but Perl 6 you've got to start with. And then down here we've got more dot chaining. We've got this max thing and the key value. And what this all does is it does exactly the same thing as the last bit of code. It just gives us top guest and top share, but it's much more Perl 6-ish. Okay, so that was pretty easy. So I thought, let's try something harder. Let's steal a CPAN Perl 5 module. So I stole the most important module out there, Lingua postcodes. One of the authors, both of the authors, contributors are in the room. One of them is me. This just tells you what postcodes is in a different language. This is the Perl 5 version. I thought it was very late on a Saturday night. I thought I could do this in Perl 6. This is the Perl 6 equivalent. What is nice here, we've got this multi-sub. Multi-sub's awesome. It says that name is still the name of the sub, but if we've got just one thing, it's going to do that top block. If it's got two args, it's going to go for the bottom one. That's quite nice. So you don't have that ugly if statement in the middle. It has export, so this is kind of how you export it with a custom name. So it's a custom, I think they call it a tag. So when you use this module, you can put use lingua postcodes name. It's quite nice. And there's this nice postfix exists, which is quite nice as well. So I thought, hey, that was too easy. Let's do it again. Let's pick an even more important module. Left pad. Dave Golden literally says, because why should JavaScript have all the fun? So this is a bit heavier going, but here's my 5-minute Perl 6 conversion. Doesn't look that much different, because Perl 5 and Perl 6 are pretty similar. Has this really cool, put a question mark at the end, and it makes it optional. So if you put it there, it's going to work. It uses this dot defined, so if text is defined, and it uses the new ternary, so 2 question marks instead of 1. It's not that hard a conversion in your head. It's quite easy to get your head around. And lastly, it's got the little concatenation thing of a tilde instead of a dot. It's not that bad. Again, Perl 5 to Perl 6, it's not that bad. So let's go get really carried away, I thought. Concurrent programming, forking, threads, that'll be fine, right? So I grabbed, this is straight from Perl.com on an article called Fork Year. Yep, I sniggered as well. So this is the Perl 5 equivalent, creates a bunch of forks, and you can see in the comments at the bottom, 3, 4, 2, 1, 5, because there's a sort of a random sleep in there. So I thought, okay, how hard is this going to be to translate into Perl 6? Yeah, not that bad. 12 lines down to 6, that's pretty cool. I could code golf that. Has this really nice await do for loop, which connects up with the start block, which is going to create a promise. It's going to wait for them. And inside that, we sleep for a random period of time. So pick is like random. So 1 to the number you pass in, pick, and I just sleep for that long. And you can see it twice when I ran this. It just went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It was really annoying. But it actually, probabilities. It goes 1, 3, 4, 2, 5. So it's doing the same thing. It just looks very different. So personally, I think I speak some Perl 6, but I do speak it with a super heavy Perl 5 accent. I'm slowly losing that accent, and you notice as those slides went along, they became less Perl 5 and more Perl 6-y. Just writing the slides made me do it. It's not hard. And going back to where I started from, Māori is not the same as Māori. Portuguese is not the same as Portuguese from Brazil, right? Yep, languages are different, and Perl 5 and Perl 6 are not the same. And Raku and Perl 5 are not the same, and Maori is not the same. But that's fine. I actually like it. Writing this talk was when the Raku renaming was going on, and but I decided in the end that it's fine, because they're all in the same whānau, which just means family. And I also thought being multilingual is really good. Like, being multilingual is cool. And in Perl, being multilingual is really easy. You can learn the Perl 6 accent really easily. Actually, you can learn the Raku accent just as easily. So it's really easy to learn that accent and to lose your Perl 5 accent if you want to. Thank you. Uh-oh. That's a very good question. Is there a linter for Perl 6? Yes-ish. I don't think it works. Well, the last time I tried to use it, it didn't quite work for me. I don't know if anybody knows different, but last time I tried it, it didn't work.
But like Chris will say that program compiles, it works, but maybe you should tweak the style.
The closest thing to a Perl critic thing is actually the compiler itself that normally tells you what you're doing wrong. They put a lot of effort into making Perl 6 actually say, hey, did you mean this? But no, there's not, as far as I'm aware, there's not a Perl critic for Perl 6 at this point, or a Perl 5 to Perl 6 critic thingy.
What are the bits of your accent that you found hardest to figure out, do the things in your brain just wired to a Perl 5 way, doing it that way, brain,
Yeah. The bits that I find hardest to lose with my Perl 5 accent going into Perl 6 is my vocabulary is not big enough. If I go back to using that analogy, that I'll do stuff and then people will tell me, oh, you know there's a command that'll do that? So Perl 6 has got all these really cool things that aren't necessarily immediately obvious. And I think that's the hardest thing. I don't know what the best example is. I speak a very basic Perl 6. That's the hardest thing, and then you go, oh, I could just do this. It's easier. I could do a map. I could do the KV for the key values, that sort of thing. For me, that's the hardest bit is spending enough time learning the language that I take full advantage of it. Does that answer that vaguely? Cool.
Just a bit of a random question. Do you know what the reason is that when you're getting the value from a hash, that you just put the key in quotes? It looks like a bit of a backward step to me. That's the first time I've seen it.
This was a subject of much debate when I rehearsed this slide earlier in the week. It's a sometimes thing. I wish there was someone who knew Perl 6 better. Having to quote them that way is, oh, there's someone who knows better. Answer the question. Or come up here, whisper it to me so I can sound smart. Didn't try that. Oh, another one. Far back is it, James? That one. This is a Perl 6ism that it takes :5 width and makes it the equivalent of going width equals 5. Yeah? Sorry? Only works with numbers, yes. One more. I know nothing about Perl 6. Don't ask me hard questions.
I'm not a native English speaker.
Yep.
And I don't particularly want to lose my Spanish accent. But I think it adds a little bit of spice.
Little flavor.
So are there any things that when you're writing in Perl 6, still with your Perl 5 accent, you say like, this is a Perl 5ism, but no, I don't know.
You're going to own it. Yeah, so when I do write Perl 6, so I suspect if you go look at the source code for myjudo.net, you'll find that it looks almost entirely like Perl 5, except for the bits that James wrote. Because I just write it like it's Perl 5, and if it works, I stop.